Number two, if you're using WordPress for that type of site and you want to add extra geolocation content for each targeted city to boost the location SEO, is it best to add that content as a separate post for each targeted city or as a separate page for each targeted city? Posts and pages don't matter. It doesn't matter how you do it. It just depends on if you're going to stack content within a silo structure, then typically it's going to be posts. It's easier to do that because you can just place the post within the category, and then interlinking and everything's easier. You can still do it with pages, but it's usually more traditional to do posts that way. Usually I use pages in WordPress for like landing pages or top of silo. If you're in a simple silo, if you're doing a complex silo where you have top level categories and in subcategories, you'll have a top level page and a sub or a child page. And then you have posts underneath the child pages, right? Which would be placed in subcategories. But that's a complex silo structure. I don't recommend that unless it's needed. The easier you keep the structure of your site, the easier it is to manage, and the better you can direct link flow within the site, right? Or in rank, in links, in rank. There's a number of terms for that, but essentially internal page rank or internal link juice, link equity, whatever you want to call it. There's a number of terms that all mean the same damn thing, but it's much easier to direct internal link flow with a shallower site, right? With a site with a simpler, an easier or less complicated architecture than it is with a complex silo. I mean, again, I've always called them complex silos when you have top level categories and subcategories, specifically because they're complicated. They're complicated to build, they're complicated to manage, they're complicated to direct internal link equity. It really is. And I used to almost always build complex silo sites because I thought I was going to be smart, right? And outsmart Google, and found out over the years that really that's unnecessary. And I really try to keep my sites as flat as possible, right? And so wider than deep, if that makes sense. And it's just easier to direct internal link flow that way. And I've just gotten way better results in local marketing by structuring my sites that way. And it's just much easier to manage too. So hopefully that makes sense. We should use reciprocal linking between that content of each related city page or just one way. I tend to try to just use one-way links. There are differing opinions on that. Always just linking in one direction is, Marco actually taught that to me about 2, maybe 3 years ago. And so I've really been following that, which was to just do linking in one direction. So in other words, if you're going to daisy chain posts together, you always link to the previous post, but you don't do bidirectional linking because that's a reciprocal link. And that can kill page rank. Although I've seen it both ways. I've seen where you've got reciprocal linking between posts within a same silo, or from the top of silo page down into the supporting post, and in the supporting post link back up to the top of silo page. Again, that's a reciprocal link, and I've still seen that rank very, very well. So, but my own personal methodology, I really adopted what Marco had taught me a few years ago, which was to always keep it in a unidirectional link, if that makes sense. And so that's just the way that I've been doing it ever since. But again, I've seen it both ways. I've seen it work both ways. So I really don't have a specific way to tell you how to do it other than to test with it. Again, like for example, Jeffrey Smith with SEO Bootcamp, and he's a master at on-page and building topical relevancy. And he can rank stuff with very little to no backlinks because he can build topical authority in the way that he structures his site builds. And he does reciprocal links. He does the rel equals prev or next, you know what I'm saying? Like those are the code that can be inserted through his plugin automatically within a silo that will link to the previous post in that silo and the next post. So they're always reciprocal links, and he just crushes it. Every topic or market that he wants to enter, he just crushes because he knows how to build topical authority. So he does internal linking differently than what Marco had taught me, and which is really the way that I adopted it. So I've seen it both ways. So I would just say test it. Honestly, whatever you feel is best, test and then see what kind of results. What's cool about it is if you've got a site that's got 2 different silos on it, you can test both. Does that make sense? Because in one silo, you could do that where you're reciprocal linking within content within that same silo. And then in the other one, you could do it where it's unidirectional, and you could test and see what kind of results you get. And if one outperforms the other, then go with that. You know what I mean? So that was another good question.